my joy to stand before you, though, and talk to you about practical prescription. We've been in this series for a long time. We're now at the last week number 10. And it seems like as we talk about this, I keep getting lots of feedback from you in a very positive way. Thank you for giving us something to take home with us. My wife has some of them on her mirror in the bathroom. But the first week, we talked about all these different attributes. And let me show you what they are. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithful, gentleness, and self-control. And then this last line, against such things there is no law. You can't really mandate these. These are something that you find and you discover because the Spirit of Christ is alive and well today, and you tap into that Spirit that's available to us. So that's what we're looking at. And in the first week, we talked about love, and we gave you the prescription. Every day, tell yourself, I'm loved, accepted, and free. You know, God's love is unconditional. It's not based on all the things that we think it is. It's unconditional. That means it's free, and I am loved, accepted, and free. It changed your life. Next week, we talked about joy. How that some people think that joy is only determined, I only feel good today, or I don't have any joy because of poor circumstance. Every day is a gift. And you can find joy every day, even in the midst of terrible circumstances. The third week we talked about patience. Drink and think. Drink a glass of water and think peacefully. The fourth week, kindness. Tell someone you admire something about them that you admire, appreciate. Then goodness. This one I've gotten so much traction on, and it's really the greeting. And when we greet each other, we say, how are you doing today? And most people say, fine, well, but I'm trying to retrain myself to say, when you say, how are you doing today? I'm trying to do good. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to do good. And not that it's not how I feel or how I am. I'm really trying to make a difference. And because of that challenge, the week we said, I'm trying to do good, you guys bought gift cards and sent for over $3,000 worth of help to the hurricane damage up in the Panhandle. You did that, so I want to thank you for that. You did good. And you also bought gift cards and passed out that equivalent amount to our community as gifts to those who need it. So you're continuing to do good. And you can still do good. One of the things we've discovered in this Christmas season, sometimes people are less fortunate than we are. And some people have said, do you have a family we could adopt? And we quit doing that. And let me tell you why. If your family needs to be adopted, sometimes the man of the family feels like he can't provide for his family and he feels sad about that. And it's not really affirming. And we've discovered that sometimes it puts them on a pedestal, and it's a little bit of humiliation that comes with that. We want to avoid that. So what we've challenged you to do is please bring gift cards. If you bring gift cards from Publix, Walmart, Target, any of those stores that don't have, buy them at $20, $30, $50, whatever you think, some will do $100, and bring them to us or put them in the offering boxes, and we will discreetly shift them out to the families that we think need a little boost at the Christmas season. That make sense? That way, it's good for them, it's good for you. We are doing good in our community. The next week was Thanksgiving. Thank you, God, for my life, and thank someone else. I need to tell you that this one changed the way I thought. And since then, when I go somewhere to a restaurant or whatever, I sincerely look the person in the eye and say, thank you for what you've done. It helped me get out of just the rote, thanks, whatever, or even not saying anything. I intentionally say thank you, and it helps me. Then gentleness was the next one. Today I respond to challenges with understanding and compassion. That's being a gentle spirit. And last week, faithfulness. A lot of positive feedback on this. When things get rough, for example, you're driving in Sarasota. Enough said. Christmas time. Things get rough. Sometimes you need to take a deep breath, and as you breathe out, say, the Lord is my shepherd. And you may need 2 or 3 of those sometimes. But somebody told me that they were at the mall this week, and they said, Pastor, you helped us by saying, just think of the person who's driving terrible in front of you as the pastor. And I was able to treat people better, but I want you to know, he said, I want you to know I treated you badly at the mall this week. He said, actually, if it were you, I flipped you off. I said, that's okay. I said, it's all forgiven, my son. I gave him the Catholic response. But the thing is, it is okay, because no one gets it together all the time. But when we do blow it, you just come back and you start over. We have to go back to the beginning and say, I blew it. I wish I could have said that a little better. And we keep going. Today we're going to examine self-control. It's last but not least. Self-control. What is it? Well, let me give you 3 thoughts. Self-control is the ability to manage our emotions and actions. See, I think self-control is last because you have to have self-control to live love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. You have to have self-control to do those things. You have to intentionally think about it. It takes self-control to live by the Spirit. It takes self-control to balance out this Spirit-filled life. And there's a reason that it's last. I think it's to pour emphasis on the rest of them. So self-control is managing. It's not really controlling my reaction to circumstances. It's managing it. At Suncoast, one of the things we teach is personal responsibility. What does that mean? It means that we want to help you take responsibility for your life. You are responsible for a lot of things that happen to you. What people love to do is blame God, or blame someone else, or blame an ex-spouse, or blame the circumstances of life. It's their fault, it's not my fault. When it's always someone else's fault, there's never a correction for you. When it's my fault, I take responsibility. And the next time I do things differently. It changes my behavior. Now, taking personal responsibility, we think is important. Do I take personal responsibility for everything? Yes. Let me explain what that means. There are certain things in my life that are based on my choices. I take responsibility for those choices. But what about those things that are not my fault? What about the choices I didn't make, circumstances that happened to me? I take responsibility for my reactions to those things. So there are things that happen beyond our control. For example, 3 years ago, this January, I lost my brother. 6 years older than me, he died of leukemia. I cannot change, and I'm not responsible for leukemia or losing him at all. I take no responsibility in that, but I do take responsibility on how I deal with my loss and my grief. Now, it's normal to grieve. I think it's important to grieve. We are not to be emotionless people. Emotions are part of it, but we need to control. I can grieve for my brother, but when I let it go out of control, when I go into denial, when I go into the point where I'm consumed with fear, to where I'm trying to overprotect everyone in my family so I don't lose anyone else, see how that's out of control. Many things I cannot control, but I can control my responses. And there's some people who say, no, I cannot. To them, I'd say, yes, you can. You just have to try. And it's a cop-out to say, I just cannot control it, because you can. And I'm going to tell you how to help that in just a few minutes. But self-control is the ability to manage our emotions and actions. It's not the ability to be emotionless. So the problems occur, though, in my opinion, when people don't want to manage their emotions or actions. I just want to let them run. It's too much work to try to control them. But if someone does something to us, our response is bam. The problem is we need to take a break. We need to take a deep breath. We need to say, the Lord is my shepherd, and take a moment before we respond. But sometimes, some people love retaliation more than reconciliation. We resent someone or something. We want to balance the scale. Something's not been fair, and we resent them. But let me tell you about resentment. Someone said this about resentment. Resentment is setting myself on fire in hopes that the smoke will bother you. That doesn't seem to make sense, does it? Resentment is not healthy for you. You see what happens when we harbor anger, we hold judgment over people? It doesn't hold them hostage. It simply damages us. Now, I say that, but also I tell you cannot force reconciliation. We can only take the first step. It takes one to initiate the process. But sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. In Romans 12:18, it says this. I love this. It says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do you hear the disclaimer? If it is possible, as far as it depends on you. I love that because it gives me all kinds of qualifiers. So in other words, as much as I can, I need to live at peace with people. There will be some people that you and I cannot reconcile with, but our challenge and our responsibility as a Christ follower is to do the best we can. And here's what else happens for me, is when I don't do the best I can, to at least at the end realize I did not. And if I had to do this over again, I would do it differently. You ever said that? If I had to play this again, I would say it differently. I would be better at what I did. I did not mean what I said. Self-control, instead of responding with anger. Sometimes we respond. It's not very natural for us to have self-control. So I asked my Thursday morning men's group, there's a group of about 20 guys that meet on regular Thursday morning. I asked them for their advice on this, their insights on this. I don't know why. Now, they're a good group, I'm just teasing. But here's what their response was. Help me with self-control. Some of the guys said this. I think self-control is thinking before you speak. Another guy said, don't let your anger, another guy threw in stupidity, of others dictate how you respond. A third one was anticipate. Another, self-control, don't overreact. All those are good. As I was thinking about this, I thought about a friend of mine. He passed away a few years ago. But he used to teach safety to women. And he really was trying to help them understand this key phrase, situational awareness. And he taught a class, ladies, if you will be aware of your situation, you can be safe. If you go to the mall and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to shop until 9 o'clock at night, don't park your car way in the back, away from any lights in the dark. Be aware of your situation. Park where there's a street light. When you come out, if there's no cars around, look around, make sure there's no one else around before you make that jaunt. Go quickly. It's simply being aware of all your circumstances, of all your situations. He said, it's not that you need a weapon, you just need to be aware of what's going on. Because you can prevent a lot of things from happening by having your eyes open. But some people, they're kind of in this tunnel. They have this tunnel vision, and they don't see the situation. They don't see what's happening. Self-control is about situational awareness. It's realizing I'm going to be in a circumstance where if I'm not careful, I might say the wrong thing, be prepared for it. For example, this Christmas, maybe you're going to a Christmas party, and someone you really don't like is going to be there too. Maybe you're going to a Christmas party and your ex-spouse is going to be there, or your boss, ex-boss. And maybe you need to stop outside before you go in and take a deep breath and say, the Lord is my shepherd. And maybe before they talk to you or before someone else talks to you, it's simply aware that there could be some tension in this circumstance. Self-control, though, is not everyone experiences it the same. I use these words. Self-control is relative. Self-control is the control that I put on myself. And I will confess to you, I don't want you putting controls on me. Just like you wouldn't want me putting controls on you. But I want you to be aware that there are some self-directives that you may have for yourself that you could apply in a better way. For example, someone may exercise self-control and not have a slice of pie for dessert. Self-control. I applaud them for that. Someone else may exercise self-control by not eating the whole pie for dessert. Self-control. Maybe they only eat half the pie. But it's still self-control. It's relative to the person. Self-control is possible in some areas for some people and not in others. The key is balance. The choice for that balance is yours. I know some people are very self-disciplined when it comes to exercise and diet, but not very self-controlled when it comes to spending. I know some people are very self-controlled in spending and exercise, but they have no control at the buffet. Food's their problem. I know some are very controlled with their diet, exercise, and spending. But when they get behind the wheel of their car, they just succumb to road rage. They just have no control in that area. So not all self-control fits everybody in the same way. But you have to determine where your weakness is and where you need to work on that. Fair enough? So sometimes, I would suggest you, it helps to know someone is watching. I'm a pastor in this community. I'm always on my best behavior. You know what the bad news is? This is my best behavior. But I always think someone could be watching me. I don't be a bad reflection on the church. So sometimes I won't respond in a way that may be my natural response because I am a pastor in this community. I think that's important. Sometimes it's good for us to think someone is watching us because we may respond in a better way to know that someone's watching. And here's the other part. Someone is always watching. Someone's watching everything you do, when you do it, and it's amazing that sometimes it's that watch that helps us be the better version of us that we can be. Stay in control, which leads me to number 2. Self-control is a healthier way of living. Now, I don't think this doesn't need a lot of documentation. There's lots of documentation, but there's one article I pulled up, Journal of Medicine Life, published in November 2015. This is what it says. Since antiquity, people have been aware of the harmful association of anger and health. Buddhism actually refers to this as one of the 3 poisons of the mind. along with greed and foolishness. Anger, greed, and foolishness. In the psychosomatic field, anger and hostility are considered health risk behaviors. The scientific literature makes the distinction between hostility, anger, and aggression, and then it goes through and explain what that is. But here's the conclusion. There's a connection between anger, hostility, aggressiveness, and health risk. Let me sum it up in less words. There is a direct connection for your health between self-control and lack of self-control. You go around without controls, it's not good for your heart, it's not good for your diabetes, and other areas as well. A person who's under control does not blow his or her top in traffic, or in line, or at the clerk, or at the restaurant. Self-control is avoiding the worst possible you. So Paul gives a lengthy characteristic of the sinful nature, is what he calls it in Galatians 5. And he really sets up, these are all the bad ways that people live, but let me tell you how you should live the life of the Spirit. And you know, all the bad things and then the good things. But live by love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. But here are the bad things. And I read it in the Message. If you want to live the uncontrolled life, this is what it looks like. It is obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your own way all the time. Repetitive, loveless, cheap sex, a stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage, frenzied and joyless grabs for happiness, trinket gods, magic show religion, paranoid loneliness, cutthroat competition, all-consuming yet never satisfied wants, a brutal temper, an inability to love or be loved, divided homes, divided life, etc. He lists all these things in Galatians 5 that are really the uncontrolled life. This is personal anarchy. Now let me explain what that means. You know what anarchy means? Without law. Anarchy is what you see on TV when you see them rioting in France right now. And the mobs take over. There's no social boundaries. People break the laws. And we see it even in our country. That's anarchy. It means lawlessness in society. But when we have personal anarchy, it's not having self-control. And Paul gives a whole list of the damage that can be done if you live a life without control. Which leads to my last thought today. Self-control reflects the life of Jesus. In the Old Testament, there are many, many examples of lack of self-control. Adam and Eve, they couldn't control themselves, they ate the fruit. Their children, Cain and Abel. Cain was so angry with his brother, he couldn't control himself, he killed his brother. Moses was so angry because he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, he couldn't control himself, so he killed the Egyptian. The brothers of Joseph were so jealous of the relationship he had with his father. He was the favorite one. They were so angry about that, they took him and captured him, threw him in the cistern, and sold him into slavery. Some wanted to kill him because they couldn't control themselves. They didn't like him. David, King David, in his huge palace, looked out across the walls of the temple, and he saw Bathsheba. She was gorgeous. She was married. He brought her into the palace. He had an affair with her. And then he was so devious about it, he sent her husband to the front lines and had him killed so he could take her as his wife. Not too much self-control there. Simon Peter, in the New Testament, after Jesus was arrested, pulled his sword out. No self-control. He lopped off the ear of the high priest's servant. Listen to what Proverbs says. Like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control. He is defenseless and doomed to defeat. So where's the answer for us? I've got great news. The life of Jesus is the place I see lots of self-control. I see lots of examples where it's not practiced, but in his life I see it being practiced. He was challenged, and we see examples of this when he was with the tempter in the wilderness. He'd gone without food for a long time. The tempter came to him and said, hey, turn these stones into bread. And he answers. His answers are so amazing, so calculated, so thoughtful, so controlled. When the Pharisees tried to trap him with all these different traps they had, you know, who are we supposed to pay? There's a coin in the fish's mouth. You know, who would we give this coin to, Caesar or God? He said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God. Many examples of Jesus appropriately responding with self-control in his life. See, I want to learn to respond the way he did. But I confess to you, I don't always succeed. But I'm working on it. This is one of those things you just can't get it today and it's good tomorrow. You have to work on it every day. Self-control, something that's continual. So let me tell you a story. I've got a couple of them where I'm not in control. I know you like these. One is a story about Enver. It's my mother's husband. He's not my dad. He's actually younger than I am. So he couldn't be my dad. So that's dysfunctional. We put the fun back in dysfunctional in my family. But because my mother's husband, he's from Bosnia. And he had a little altercation with my brother a few years ago. My brother was a full-time carpenter for years, and then he became a pastor. And he was helping with a church one day, and he was sawing off some pews. They wanted to move them from here to there. And as he took the saw, and he, sometimes carpenters, when they have a real long board or something, they won't cut it exact the first time. They'll cut off the weight so the second cut can be more precise. And he cut off the end of the pew that was going to be no good. And then he took a second measurement. And as he took the second measurement, he was going to cut it again. And Enver was standing there. And he said to my brother, "No, Ben, you don't do that. You measure. You only cut once. You don't measure. You don't cut twice. You only cut once." My brother Ben said, here's a saw. You do it." "Oh no, I've never used a saw." My brother said, "Then you should shut your bleep, bleep, bleep mouth. You can fill those in. Whatever you choose is probably accurate." And I thought that, I called Ben, I said, "Ben, that's our mom's husband. You need to treat him with a little more respect." He said, "Well, he just drives me crazy." So I understand, but you need to work on that. You're rude to him. Then a few years ago, I went to Nashville to attend a family funeral. And I went to my brother Ben's house where we were just having some family time, and my mother was at the table with Enver, and some other family members were there. And my mother, bless her heart, she does the taxes for 3 of my brothers. Now, she doesn't do my taxes because I know better, but these 3 guys don't know better. She does their taxes. But my mom's 92 years old, so she was about 90 at this point. And as we're talking about tax, I said, "Mom, you doing taxes here?" "Yes." "Do you notice the tax code's a little different?" "Yes, I do." I said, "It's amazing. I made the same amount I did last year, and I same deductions, and I had to pay $200 more in taxes." And Enver said, "That's not possible." I said, "Well, Enver, I made the same amount I did last year." "You can't make the same amount as you did last year. That's not possible." I said, "I did." He said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Enver, I did." He goes, "No, you didn't." I said, "I have a paycheck. I have W-2 forms. I could prove to you that I made exactly the same last year as I did the year before. It's just the way it is." He goes, "That's not possible." I said, "Enver, have you ever done taxes?" "No." "Have you ever paid taxes?" "No." "I've never paid them. I've never filed them. I'm from Bosnia." He doesn't even turn his stuff in. And I go, "Well, Enver," and I probably said this in a way a little more kind than Ben, but not much. I said, "Enver, you're not an expert in this matter. Your opinion just really doesn't matter to me. Okay?" And I just sort of didn't say any more, and he felt a little bit uncomfortable. My brother was really uncomfortable. And later that night, though, I had this conversation with God. And there's where the conversation went, something like, "That's not the best version of you that you can be. You just chided your brother to be the best version he could be, and you've just responded in a similarly rude way. Not good self-control." So I went back the next day, and I told my mom, we were at the funeral, they have a viewing most of the day, and had this little lunchroom in the back. We gathered in the lunchroom for some snacks, and I saw my mom. I said, "Mom, I'm sorry I was a little rude. You're a little short with your husband." I use the word short, not rude. "A little short with your husband." She goes, "Oh, it's okay." She said, I said, "Well, I apologize to you. I'm going to apologize to him." She said, "Well, that'd be nice." So I went to Enver and I said, "Enver, I was a little short with you yesterday. I want to apologize. I want to sincerely apologize. I should respect you a little more than that." He said, "No problem, Larry. But what I'm trying to tell you is about the taxes." Excuse me, I think I see Chris over here. So in that conversation with God that I had, it was, I will never, here's a rule I made for my life. I will never let my emotions get above level 1 with Enver. Never. And I have not since then. Now, how do you do that? I stay away from him. It's a simple trick. So But he's coming to my house Saturday, so I'll see how it goes. But here's the point. Self-control is a virtue. It needs to be practiced continually. And just about the time you think you get it figured out, you'll blow it again. But I have great news for you. There's a loving Heavenly Father who loves you, and He understands that. He wants you to keep trying and keep trying to be the best person you can be. Can I pray for you? Father, thank you for your loving grace. We ask that you would do in our hearts what only you can do, and that's let the Spirit of Jesus come alive. May we embrace it. May we own it. May it live in us and through us. So at the end of our life, we look back and say, oh God, you really have transformed us into the best that we can be. Thank you, Lord, for your loving grace. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. So bring out your prescription now at this point, if you would. See that prescription? And here's the prescription for you. Self-control. So what I want you to do this week, write one rule for you to follow, or not. You decide. See, it's not me controlling you. I want you to think about one thing you can do better than you've been doing. I'm going to get up on time. I'm going to go to bed on time. I'm going to drink more water during the day. I'm going to give the pastor gift cards for the homeless people. I'm going to give the pastor gift cards for him to go out to eat. I mean, whatever you think is an appropriate thing. Just tease it. But whatever you decide. Fair enough? So you know what will make you a better person. You know where you struggle. No one else does. And you can help do that. And I appreciate it if you do. So would you stand, please? I'm going to tell you a story in closing. And I'll remind you, if you want to pray at the end of the service, there's someone up front here who would be delighted to pray with you as well. Another failure story. When I was 22 years old, Becky and I were in Kansas City in graduate school. We lived in Overland Park, Kansas, a very wealthy area. And one day after we left church, we were driving a car through the neighborhood. And as we're driving through the neighborhood, there were some people riding bikes. You know, bicyclists or enthusiasts, and I ride my bike a lot, I understand. But they were in a residential neighborhood going 15 miles an hour. The speed limit was 30. And they just blocked the whole road. I drive my little car and a little Plymouth Horizon. And as I was behind them for about a minute, I finally gave a real polite beep, and some of them saw me. I don't think they saw me. They pulled over, and I drove around them. As I did, two of the guys flipped me the bird. And I just went, what's this about? So I pulled in front of them, and as Becky and I were talking, I was 22. It's like 10 years ago. I mean, as she's talking, she's not paying attention. I'm slowing down. I started going about 12. And these guys are all behind me, and they couldn't pass me. At this point, they're right on my bumper, and they're all, well, not all, but many were flipping me the bird. And I'm okay with that. So then after a few seconds of that, I slammed on the brakes. I just locked them up. There were bicycles everywhere. No one hit my car, but they were colliding with one another. And I just smiled and drove on. Everything was great. I looked over at my wife. Someone was watching. You're better if you're going to do that to not have someone in the car. Truthfully, was not my best moment. I'm embarrassed by it. I tell you and I laugh about it, but my judgment was not good. But managing our emotions, making good judgment, is a way that honors the Spirit of Christ in our life. I'm so glad that when I'm rude to God, He doesn't slam on the brakes for me. He simply loves me unconditionally, just like He loves you. I'm here to share that with you. He loves you, so do I. God bless. Thanks for coming.